You follow the case involving the 2014 murder of Dan Markel closely. In 2023, you intently watched the murder-for-hire trial against Charles Adelson, the victim's former brother-in-law. You are aware that Dan Rashbaum, the defense attorney, and his team pulled out many surprises at trial. One of those surprises involved jury selection. A full team of jury selection experts, including nationally known jury selection defense attorney expert Joshua E. Dubin, better known as Josh Dubin, filed an appearance just before the start of jury selection. And Josh Dubin conducted the questioning for the defense. You wondered if these tricks would work, if Charles Adelson would get away with murder. You heard that jury selection was done, we had a jury, and then you watched the trial every day, looking forward to the result. The verdict came, and you learned that dentist Charles Adelson was found guilty of all charges and was going to spend the rest of his life in a Florida prison. If you're the person I just described, this new video, part of a new series, is for you. A few days later, you learned that Charles's mom, Donna Adelson, was also arrested for the murder. Late September of 2024 can't come fast enough. That is when jury selection will start for her trial. In this series, you will watch never-before-seen excerpts from Charles Adelson's trial, from jury selection to the trial itself, key portions of the trial that also include audio of the sidebar conferences. All right, let's get into the video. This is part 1 of jury selection. Let's go.
I'm Judge Stephen Everett. How was that?
Good morning, everyone. You can be seated. We have one additional matter we didn't discuss during the pre-trial, but we probably should go over it today. Which day were the parties wanting the jurors who make it through the individual process to return? I assume Wednesday, but I just don't want to communicate this to them without discussing it with you first.
I would prefer tomorrow, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Josh Dubin. I entered an appearance last week.
Good morning, sir.
I would think we would want to see how quickly we're moving this morning, but I don't see how we'd get through that many this morning, so I'd say Wednesday as well.
Well, it will be 50 this morning and 50 this afternoon. What I'll do is this. I guess, do we have our clerk yet, or they're still rounding up the jurors right now? What I will do then is I will have the clerk then just let them know. We'll contact them whether it will be Tuesday or Wednesday to return for the start of group voir dire. And we're seeing how much progress we're going to make today. We'll have a better gauge on that. Okay. Hello. I was just discussing with the parties for the jurors that go through the individual process and we want them to return. I was hoping we'd be able to tell them a specific day, but for right now, just your office will be in contact with them when they need to come back in.
Okay, perfect.
All right, do we have the jurors in the hallway?
Could raise it if you want.
Do we have anything that we need to address before we bring them in this morning?
Judge, both parties seem to agree that a statement of the case might be helpful to advise the whole panel before we retire to do the individual voir dire. We haven't been able to agree on what that should be, though, so we did make an effort to do that. We have 2 options that we can supply, Your Honor, and you can make a decision on that.
All right. I was just going to read the charges, but not the indictment at this stage, unless you all were wanting something more substantive.
Well, Your Honor, I think what might be helpful, at least from the defense perspective, is that as the court knows, there's been an extraordinary amount of media attention.
Yes.
I think that from our standpoint, what will stoke folks' memory is a Florida State University professor or College of Law professor being killed. That's what most of the podcasts, most of the TV shows, most of the news coverage has always said. I think that's the consistent thread. But you'll take a look at the competing statements, and I think that what we specifically object to in the prosecution's statement is that he was shot twice in the head. I don't think that that's a necessary detail at this point. But my colleague has the competing statement.
You may. Thank you.
Judge, this statement is type 1. I have no objection to striking twice in the head.
And you're wanting me to give this prior to starting any qualification with the jurors?
Just prior to the individual voir dire where we're going to make the immediate inquiries.
Okay.
We agree, Your Honor.
Very well. All right, then from the version the state has prepared, I will remove the shot twice in the head. Or excuse me, just the twice in the head portion. It will read, on July 18th, 2014, FSU College of Law professor Dan Markel was shot while seated in his car. This happened in the driveway of Markel's home on Trescott Drive in the Benton Hills neighborhood. The killers traveled from Tallahassee to Miami to commit the murder in a rented silver green colored Prius. Defendant and alleged conspirator in this murder was the former brother-in-law of Dan Markel.
Your Honor,
Dan Markel. Go ahead.
Your Honor, we would just ask it that we add that the defendant has denied any
Of not guilty.
has denied any involvement and is therefore pled not guilty.
All right. Again, the request is for this to be read each time prior to all individual questioning by the court or the parties. To each individual juror as they come in.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
You want me to read this for each juror who comes in or after they're qualified?
After they're qualified to the whole group.
I'm sorry. No. I mean, I think what we both wanted was that when you bring in the entire panel, I think there's 50 this morning.
Correct.
That the statement be read to all of them so that they know what this is about and have in their mind if they've been exposed to any media before they go back. Okay.
As often that happens in many trials, everyone's approaching from the same direction but ending up at the same place.
Sorry, Your
It will be
Honor.
read before they go back for any individual questioning.
Perfecto.
Right, please bring in the jurors. Also, we're on the record in 2016 CF 3036B, State of Florida versus Charles Adelson. And the juries are coming, or the prospective jurors are coming in at this time to be qualified.
Thank you.
Is that all of the jurors? Everyone can be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Everett, one of your circuit judges for the Felony Criminal Division here in Leon County. You have been summoned here this morning as prospective jurors in the case of the state of Florida versus Charles Adelson. This is case number 2016 CF 3036B. This is a criminal case. The state has charged Mr. Adelson with the crimes of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder. You will notice at times during the jury selection process that I will be reading to you. It's not that I do not wish to have a free-flowing conversation with all of our prospective jurors, but rather the explanations that I will be providing to you on the law must be uniform and they must be specific. Is the state ready to select a jury this morning?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor.
And for the record, I'm noting the defendant is present in the courtroom with his counsel. The first thing that we're going to go through this morning is the jury qualification. It's a series of questions that I'm going to have to ask you to determine whether or not you meet the criteria to even serve as a juror in the state of Florida. I'm fairly confident that everyone is going to be able to answer these questions in order to be qualified as a juror, but it's still something that I must confirm first. And actually, given the fact that I'm going to need to put closer eyes on you all for these responses, I'm going to walk down to you. If the bailiff and the clerk can come with me, this portion will probably go a little bit easier if I do that. First thing I'm going to need you to do, please stand up and raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will answer truthfully all questions that are asked of you as prospective jurors, so help you God? You may be seated. Of the questions that I'm about to ask you all, if you please could raise your hand if the answer to any of these questions will be no. Are you at least 18 years of age or older? Not a trick question. Only if you're 17 do I want you to raise your hand. Are you a citizen of the United States of America? Are you a legal resident of Leon County? Do you possess a driver's license or identification card that's been issued by the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles? Or have you executed an affidavit attesting to your eligibility to serve as a juror? Have you been convicted in any state or federal court of bribery, forgery, perjury, larceny, or any felony, and your civil rights have not been restored? Are you currently under prosecution for any crime, either in a state or federal court? Congratulations! Every single person is qualified to serve. Moving on from here, we're going to go through some discretionary excusals. These are excusals that are given to individuals by the statute as well. If you wish to take advantage of these excusals, you may do so, but it's up to you. Is anyone here a full-time sworn federal, state, or local law enforcement officer or investigating personnel? Is anyone is anyone an expecting mother or a parent responsible for the full-time care of a child under 6? We'll come back to you on that one. Is anyone 70 or older? Do you wish to be excused on that ground? Has anyone performed state jury service in the last year? Not asking about the federal court, but merely about the state court. Is is anyone responsible for the full-time care of a person with a physical or mental incapacity who is incapable of caring for yourselves, and you being here will create a hardship? All right, we'll speak with you also, ma'am. Is anyone a full-time student between 18 and 21 who's attending high school, a state university, a private post-secondary educational institution, a Florida college system institution, or a career center? Well, sir. If everyone can raise their hand and they can form a line right here.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to go over some requests also.
You can get more in there. The attorneys can join me at the bench. We'll take each person one by one. Right here is good. You can bring up the first person. Now that everyone has been qualified this morning, I'm going to explain to you a little bit of the process and how it's going to take place. The first thing that we're going to do is discuss with you individually what you may know about this case. This case has received a fair amount of publicity, and there was also a related trial that took place about a year ago. This process is going to be handled individually because you do not need to know what others may know concerning this case if they have prior knowledge at all. Before we start any individual questioning, I'm going to give you some very important instructions. Many of you have cell phones, computers, and other electronic devices that you may have brought to the courtroom with you. Even though you have not yet been selected as a juror, there are some rules that you must follow, even as a prospective juror, concerning your cell phones, electronic devices, and computers from this point moving forward. You must not use your phones or devices to search the internet or to find out anything that is related to this case. Between now and when you have been discharged, you must not provide or receive any information about your jury service to anyone, including your friends, co-workers, and family members. You may tell those who need to know where you are and that you've been called for jury duty. If you are picked for the jury, you may tell people that you've been picked for a jury and how long the case may take. However, you must not give anyone any information about the case itself or the people that are involved in this case. You must also warn people not to try to say anything to you or write to you about your jury service or the case. This includes face-to-face, phone, and computer communications. In this age of electronic communication, I want to stress to you that you must not use electronic devices or computers to talk about this case. This would include tweeting, texting, blogging, emailing, posting information on a website or chat room, or through any other means at all. Do not send or accept any messages, including email or text messages about your jury service. You must not disclose your thoughts about jury service or ask for any advice on how to decide the case. Further, you must not read, listen to, or find any news accounts related to this case until you have been excused. Avoid the newspaper, television broadcast, and particularly the local news stations. Also, avoid social media or any internet news sites. I am now going to provide to you a statement of the case that has been agreed upon by the parties. On July 18th, 2014, FSU College of Law professor Dan Markel was shot while seated in his car. This happened in the driveway of Markel's home on Trescott Drive in the Benton Hills neighborhood. The killers traveled to Tallahassee from Miami to commit the murder in a rented silver green colored Prius. The defendant and alleged conspirator in this murder was the former brother-in-law of Dan Markel and has entered a plea of not guilty. The statement of the case that I've just read to you is not evidence and is not to be considered as evidence or any proof of guilt. You must not be influenced by this statement. It is merely informing you of the accusation that has been made by the state against the defendant. Before we speak with you individually and privately about this case, some of you may be excused. The rest of you will remain to participate in the next phase of the jury selection process. Individual voir dire is time-consuming, but it will go a lot smoother if you're prepared to tell us what we need to know when each of you are brought back to speak with us. These are the basic questions that you will be asked. What do you know about this case? What are the sources that you've obtained this knowledge from? Based on what you know, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Can you set aside your present knowledge, disregard it, and render a verdict solely on the evidence that is presented in the courtroom? Can you be fair and impartial? Do you have any reason that you cannot serve on the jury for potentially up to 3 weeks? It will save us all a lot of time if you think about these questions and you're prepared to give an answer to each of the questions when you are called back. As it relates to the hardship aspect of this, we expect the jury selection process to possibly take up through Thursday of this week. After that process is complete, we will begin the trial with opening statements and calling witnesses. All in total, we expect that these proceedings from today may potentially take 3 weeks. We understand it is a burden for anyone to serve for that length of time. However, we cannot make our system of justice work unless we have good people that are willing to do their civic duty and serve as jurors. Similar to those in military service, we do have to call on our citizens to make serious sacrifices depending on the situation. Jury duty is one of those times. You will probably never be called on again to do something like this. However, I understand for some of you, this may not be possible given the length of time. To give you a little more information about what it will involve, you will not be sequestered during this trial. You will be permitted to go home at the end of each day and to return the next. For the most part, we will work a regular business day, trying to keep a schedule somewhere between 9 a.m. to around 5 p.m. On occasion, it may be necessary for you to work a little bit longer based on the witness schedule. I will do my best to adhere to keeping this schedule. So please give it some thought to whether any of you would have a major problem, including a physical problem or issue, that would prevent you from giving this case your full attention and performing your duties as a juror. Please be patient with us. We will be working as efficiently as we can this morning. The bailiffs, the clerks, and court administration will be assisting here in the courtroom. While you remain in the courtroom, please follow the bailiff's or clerk's instructions. Do not discuss this case while you're waiting or anywhere else until you have been excused. Please do not read or listen to any media accounts on your phone or anywhere else, also until you've been excused. At this time, I would ask for the attorneys and the court reporter and the clerk to go ahead and move into the jury room to get set up. Prospective jurors, we will call you back one by one and try to get through this process as quickly as possible. Deputy Eldridge, if you could get Miss Moore and just have her waiting here. Deputy Bunk will tell you when she can be brought in.
Yes, sir. Miss Moore?
Oh, at one point we were.
All right, report it back in session.
Many times. A couple times. Yeah.
Everyone can be seated. All right, let's bring the jurors back up. 1 o'clock.
Where are the jurors? I need you to figure that out for me, huh?
Go downstairs if you need
Yes.
to.
Yes.
Amanda, Tanya mentioned possibly bringing them over here and staging them in 3/8 again, so I'll go check.
She'll figure that out for us.
Your Honor, if we could make use of the time before the jurors are brought in.
Go ahead.
I was alerted to an issue. I'm not going to refer to them by name because the camera is in here, but with the last juror that we excused,
Yes.
referred to him as juror number 26. I was alerted to an issue that when we were in the back, he was engaged in a conversation with juror 25. At some point, juror 33 stood up and said, in words or substance, I'm not going to listen to this shit. She's brainwashed, and got up and asked to be moved. I'd like to be able to inquire once we get to 33 what that was about. I'd like to ask 25 if she was, if 26 was talking to her about the case. The reason that I bring this to the court's attention is because I think juror 26 was less than candid with the court, and given some of the strong feelings that this juror who has been struck, 26, expressed on his social media, I'd like to know what that was all about. Wouldn't be my first time that a prospective juror tried to infect the pool with his or her commentary or opinions about the case. So just in an abundance of caution, Your Honor, again, if we could speak to number 33 and find out what his reaction was about, and to number 25 and find out what 26 was engaged in conversation with her about.
State, any response?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. When juror 25 returns, she's left the day at this point, I assume, you'll be permitted to inquire as far as juror 33 is concerned. You can make inquiry as to him concerning any matters involving juror 26.
Very well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Please bring him in. Everyone can be seated. Well, actually, the attorneys and the court reporter will need to take your position once again in the jury room so we can continue with the individual voir dire. Alicia Daigle will be next. Ms. Daigle, if you can come up and stand next to the bailiff, we will address you very soon.
I have lips. I have one. 1.5.
Let's go ahead and bring up the next group and get them seated.
Okay. Yeah. What? No, we're not doing it yet. The jurors are going new jurors are coming in. 50 more. So he's going to do the whole intro to that. So it's Groundhog Day. Yes, you do.
Okay.
To bring what?
Oh, man.
That would be a yes.
The list, yeah.
Okay. Good news is in Miami, I gotta look through to see if I know anything. There.
Everyone can be seated. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Everett, one of your judges for the Felony Criminal Division for Leon County. You have been summoned here this afternoon as prospective jurors for the case of State of Florida versus Charles Adelson. This is case number 2016 CF 3036B. This is a criminal case. The state has charged Mr. Adelson with the crimes of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder. You will notice at times during this selection process that I will be reading to you. It's not that I do not wish to have a free-flowing conversation with all of our prospective jurors, but rather any instruction that I'm to provide to you on the law itself must be specific and it must be uniform. Is the state ready to select a jury this afternoon?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed as well?
We are, Your Honor.
And for the record, I'm noting that Mr. Adelson is in the courtroom with his attorneys. The first thing that we're going to do this afternoon is I'm going to qualify you to determine whether or not you are eligible to serve as jurors in this matter. If the bailiff and the clerk can accompany me. This will go a lot faster if I'm not straining to see you raise your hands. I don't need glasses yet, but it doesn't mean that my eyes don't get tired. Each of the following questions that I'm about to ask you is based on a specific statutory provision that would disqualify you from serving as a juror if you do not meet the criteria. If your answer to any of the following questions is no, please raise your hand. First question. Is everyone here at least 18 years of age or older? Is everyone here a citizen of the United States of America? Is everyone here a legal resident of Leon County, Florida? Do you all possess a driver's license or identification card that's been issued by the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles? Or have you executed an affidavit attesting to your eligibility to serve as a juror? Has anyone ever been convicted in any state or federal court of bribery, forgery, perjury, larceny, or any felony, and your civil rights are not currently restored? Is anyone at the present time under any prosecution for any crime in either a state or federal court? Very well. That means everyone is qualified to serve as a juror potentially. I'm going to go through some additional matters that pertain to discretionary excusals. These are grounds on which you may be excused from serving on the jury based on meeting a particular statutory criteria as well. All of these, or none of these, may be applicable to you. However, I'm going to go through them with you as a group also. Is anyone a full-time, sworn, federal, state, or local law enforcement officer or investigative personnel? Please raise your hand if that applies to you. Is anyone an expecting mother or a parent responsible for the full-time care of a child under 6 years of age? All right, ma'am, we'll speak with you in just a moment. Is anyone here over 70, or 70 or older, I should say? Has anyone performed state jury service in the last year? And by last year, I would mean between, this is October 23rd, 22, and today. If that applies to you, you may raise your hand. Is anyone responsible for the full-time care of a person with a physical or mental incapacity who is incapable of caring for themselves, and you being present will cause a hardship for them? Right now, let's speak with you as well. Is anyone a full-time student between 18 and 21 who is attending high school in a state university, a private post-secondary educational institution, Florida college system institution, or career center? If you raised your hand, please form a line right here in the well, and I will address you briefly with the attorneys. The attorneys can approach the bench. Actually, one very important thing is where you get I need all of you to stand up so I can administer the oath of the prospective juror. Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will answer truthfully all questions asked of you as prospective jurors, so help you God? You may be seated. The first thing that we're going to go through this afternoon is a discussion of what you all may know concerning this case. This case has received a fair amount of publicity, and there was also a related case that took place about a year ago. This process, well, what a wonderful segue. Turn the phones off now. If your phone is on, please shut it down. This process is going to be handled on an individual basis because you do not need to know what the other prospective jurors may know concerning this matter. Before we start any questioning, I am going to give you some instructions concerning cell phones, computers, and other electronic devices. Even though you have not yet been selected as a juror, there are some rules that you must follow about using your cell phones, electronic devices, and computers from this point moving forward. You must not use your phones or devices to search the internet or to find out anything that is related to this case. Between now and when you have been discharged from jury duty, you must not provide or receive any information about your jury service, and this includes friends, family members, co-workers, or anyone else. You may tell those who need to know where you are and that you've been called for jury duty. If you are picked for the jury, you may tell people that you've been picked for the jury and how long the case may take. However, you must not give anyone any information about the case itself or about the people that are involved in this case. You must also warn people not to try to say anything to you or to write to you about your jury service or about the case. This includes face-to-face, phone, or computer communications. In this age of electronic communication, I want to stress to you that you must not use electronic devices or computers to talk about this case, including tweeting, texting, blogging, emailing, posting information on a website or chat room, or through any other means at all. Do not send or accept any messages, including email or text messages, about your jury service. You must not disclose your thoughts about your jury service or ask for any advice on how to decide the case. Further, you must not read nor listen to any news accounts about this case until you have been excused. Avoid the newspaper, television broadcast, and particularly the local news stations. Also, avoid any social media or internet news sites. I am now going to provide to you a statement of the case which has been agreed upon by the parties. On July 18, 2014, FSU College of Law professor Dan Markel was shot while seated in his car. This happened in the driveway of Markel's home on Trescott Drive in the Benton Hills neighborhood. The killers traveled to Tallahassee from Miami to commit the murder in a rented silver green colored Prius. Defendant and alleged conspirator in this murder was the former brother-in-law of Dan Markel and has entered a plea of not guilty. The statement of the case that I have just read to you is informing you of the accusations that the state has made against the defendant. It is not evidence, and it is not to be considered by you as evidence or any proof of guilt. We are now going to talk to you individually and privately about this matter. Some of you may be excused, and the rest of you will remain to participate in the next phase of the jury selection process. Individual voir dire is time-consuming, but it will go smoother if you're prepared to tell us the information that we need to know from you, which is pertinent. These are the basic questions that you will be asked. What do you know about this case? What sources have you obtained this knowledge from? Based on what you know, do you have an opinion about Mr. Adelson's guilt or innocence? Can you set aside your present knowledge, disregard it, and render a verdict solely on the evidence that is presented in the courtroom? Can you be fair and impartial? Do you have any reason that you cannot serve on the jury for potentially 3 weeks, which would represent a hardship? It will save us all a lot of time if you think about the questions that I have just posed to you and be prepared to provide a prompt answer when you are called back to discuss those 5 questions. As it relates to hardship, we expect this jury selection process to take possibly up and through Thursday of this week. After that process has been completed, we expect the opening statements and the evidence in the trial to begin. In total, we expect that the proceedings from today may take up to 3 weeks altogether. We understand that it's a burden for anyone to serve on a jury for that length of time. However, we cannot make our system of justice work unless we have good people that are willing to do their civic duty to serve as jurors. Similar to people in military service, we do have to call on our citizens to make serious sacrifices. Jury duty is one of those times. You will probably never be called on again to do something similar to this. However, I understand for some of you, this may not be possible under the circumstances. To give you some more information about what this will involve, you will not be sequestered during the trial, meaning you will be able to go home at the end of each day. For the most part, we will work a regular business day, but on occasion it may be necessary to work a little bit longer based on the witness schedule. I will do my best to adhere to a regular schedule, so please give it some serious thought as to whether any of you have a major issue or a physical problem or anything that may prevent you from giving this case your full attention and serving as a juror. Please be patient with us. We will be working as efficiently as we can. The bailiffs, clerks, and court administration will be assisting here in the courtroom. Please follow the bailiffs or clerk's instructions. Do not discuss the case while you are waiting or anywhere else until you have been excused. Please do not listen or read any media accounts on your phone or anywhere else until you have been excused. And also, I just wanted to give some emphasis on this point of not discussing the case until you have been excused. This is something that's very important that will enable us to select a fair jury as to both the state and the defense. It's very important that you follow this instruction. I definitely do not want to have to engage anyone in a negative context or capacity, but if I find out that anyone is discussing this case, I will deal with you appropriately. If the attorneys can please join me in the jury room, we will begin the individual voir dire from there. Brazos is the first one. You can go ahead and get him ready.
Yeah.
We have obtained over 10 hours of exclusive jury selection footage from the Charles Adelson trial. Part 2 is coming soon. We hope to see you there. Thanks for watching Mentor, Lawyer, and Ladybug.